So, for those who are watching this on YouTube, who are not blessed with the visuals I'm getting, I can see over your shoulder a rather spectacular sight. Rose, do you want to tell me where you are?
I am in Cusco, Peru, which is incredibly magical.
I know. It's just like every time I speak to you, I'm like, "Ooh, you're getting a little different view." So I'm loving it. All the different views out of your window. So thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to have this conversation and share your wisdom with my listeners slash watchers slash audience. So, Rose, tell me, have you ever thought of yourself as a good girl?
Oh. Oh my, yes. I received that conditioning and I played it really well for a number of years. That conditioning to not just be a good girl, but also be like the best girl,
Mm-hmm.
to be a high achiever, to make sure everyone else is happy around me, to sacrifice my needs for others. Yeah, I've definitely played that role. I think the interesting thing for me at this moment in my life is noticing those moments where the programming still pops up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we have this perception of, I'm a trained somatic healer. I've been doing this work for years. I help other people do this work. And to still see those moments of programming pop up is such, it just shows you how deeply they're embedded.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And it's not our fault as well. It's
Mm,
that,
yeah.
these were our parents and grandparents and teachers and schools and their grandparents and their like all of this weight of expectations on us as women and girls to behave in a certain way. And I think I'm a little bit older than you, but kind of our generation-ish, um, that sort of belief that we can have it all,
Mm,
we can do it all, we can be it all. And it's absolutely exhausting.
mm. I feel like I gave up that belief quite a number of years ago.
Yay.
So, yay, woo! I had worked in international public health for 10 years. I lived half of that time in West Africa in different countries and been under a lot of pressure. I was married. And at a certain point, it was actually around COVID where I ended up back in the States because I had to take a evacuation flight.
Hmm.
That that narrative really broke for me. And for me, it broke because I'd been living in chronic pain for 8 years and basically discovered that my body was okay. My brain was just holding so much emotional pain and stress that it had turned on the physical pain signals to try to get my attention. And as I healed through that, it really forced me to let go of
Hmm.
this idea of I have to work in this certain way, I have to perform in this certain way, I have to get all these marks on the chart. And it really changed everything for me because I think we're so associated with that mask that we wear, that we're trying to please everyone else, that we're trying to basically get enough validation on the outside that we somehow feel safe and loved on the inside. For me, that's really when it just broke in half. Like I'd been doing work before that, but that was the moment where it was just like, I can't do this. Like, not just I can't do this, but this is not natural. Like, we've created this whole societal expectation
Hmm.
that humans are supposed to do all of these things and interact in this way and be so externally oriented that we're just like completely disconnected from what's happening in our bodies, what's happening emotionally, mentally. It's like all of our emotional and mental energy is just focused on what others are going to think and what we have to do to please them and what we have to do to prove ourselves. And at a certain point, I was just like, fuck this. Like, I
Hmm.
just am not. I'm just not doing it.
Hmm. It's such a brave step though, because that's so one of the fun ways we're conditioned is to judge the living daylights out of everybody. So I'm
Yeah.
sure as soon as you decided not to go down that sort of continue down that same path, that all of the all of the kind of are you sure And
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
you can imagine all of the people who probably love you very much and want the best for you probably would then like their panic that you're going down this different path into the unknown, and you're like
Mm.
willingly skipping along like you know, little Red Riding Hood.
Ta-da! Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is gonna be fine, everyone. Everyone's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. And interestingly, my husband at the time had told my best friend as I was starting to get into more, I like to live at the intersection of where the neuroscience meets the woo. Because
Mm-hmm.
this is where it all, like, if you go far enough around on the woo, you end up in quantum physics, and the same the other way around.
Yeah.
So for me, there's no division. It's just like, what is the language that you want me to use? And so I'll ask people, do you want me to tell you through the lens of science, through the lens of energy, through the lens of your nervous system? Like, it's all the same at the end of the day. And I had been starting to listen to different types of materials sort of in that, more in the woo.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently found out that my husband at the time had like expressed some concern to my best friend about like, is Rose joining a cult? Because it was outside of what society tells us we're supposed to do. I'm like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
working a 9 to 5 job anymore. I'm not going to places where I feel unsafe anymore. I'm not going to dance around on eggshells and stay in places that don't feel good to me. I'm not going to cut myself into bite-sized pieces so that everyone can easily digest me. And it was so, and my former husband, lovely, amazing person, but even he was like, like, you're getting really far from outside of the box. Like, do you even have a box anymore? And it's really just been almost a series of rebirths again and again and again. Like every time we come out of this, a big chunk of conditioning sort of like falls off us, or we do this
Mm.
work to let that go. And for me, I work with clients in the trauma healing space. And so I've done a lot of trauma healing myself because my conviction is that you can only take someone as far as you've gone. And so
Yeah.
for me, I continue to do that work. And no matter how much work we do, there's always more opportunity for expansion, but not from a place of, oh, I'm broken and I need to be fixed and someone has to heal me, but from this place of, I know that I'm aware and conscious of the fact that even now I'm still holding things.
Mm-hmm.
These patterns are still coming up of what I should be doing, especially around relationships between men and women.
Oh gosh.
Well, really in every area of our life, but that's what I'm noticing in this moment of my life experience where like you're on your own, you do all this healing, and then a man enters the picture and all of a sudden your brain is like, revert, 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 like go back to
People please look after him, all of that stuff. Yeah.
which is I think where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Even a year ago, it would have come more through a lens of judgment and like, ugh, why am I doing this? And now it's more of a place of love and curiosity of like, oh, that's still in there. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Like what's under that? And I think that's also such a powerful place for people who are in like a healing or growth or expansion or whatever they want to call it journey
Mm-hmm.
of I feel like I hear so often, and sometimes I feel like I tell my mentor, like, I've done all this healing work. Can I be done by now? Is there a done? Like, no, there's no done. And
It's like,
so
yeah, it's like
yeah.
20,000 years of conditioning. How are you going to be done in this lifetime?
Right. And I think that's such a powerful piece of it. Like we have this in our culture, this like highly individualistic idea that like, okay, we need to work on us because we are XYZ thing. And when we think about, as you said, like tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of years of conditioning, and that is so strong in us, and the trauma that not even we physically experienced. Like I'm here with a group of digital nomads, and it's so interesting having conversations with the women around just basic physical safety.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to go dancing, what you have to do in order to make sure that, you don't accidentally get murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such a heavy weight that we as women and men to a certain extent carry, of what I call it is like just being the smaller animal.
Yeah.
Like we are just the smaller animal, and that alone gives us a sense of like physical insecurity that we can work
Mm-hmm.
through, of course, and there's a lot of healing that we can do around that. But to still be confronted with that in 2024 is just mind-blowing to me.
Yep. Yep. It's interesting. I've got bunny rabbits. And they are literally the most like anxious, creatures on the planet. And of
Mm-hmm.
course they're dwarf rabbits to make it even so they're
Oh,
little versions of the little versions of bunny rabbits. Bunny rabbits, how old am I? They're rabbits. And
teeniest, tiniest bunny
it's
rabbits.
just so cute, but they are like very aware of their surroundings, and they're fine when it's just me, but as soon as anyone else is in the room, they have their own bedroom. Lovely.
Obviously.
Yes, obviously they've got their own room. um but they are constantly alert, and explaining that level of constantly alertness, it's just how we live our lives. We're aware because, you know by the grace of, whoever you believe in, you're on this planet, and one minute you take the wrong turning and you're not. So it's no wonder. We have friends who they're called the sidecar guys, and they literally circumnavigated the globe on a motorcycle and a sidecar. They went to all of the countries, and I loved hearing the stories. We've got their book. It's like the stories of humanity and kindness and goodness, and them almost dyingness. But they didn't for once ever think, two girls couldn't have done that. Not a chance.
Mm.
Two women could not have done that.
Mm. They could have. It just would have been a different book that they wrote.
Yes. In terms of not having any regard for their safety.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's what I wish for the world, that women could do ridiculous things on a motorcycle and sidecar along the Siberian highway in January, and oh yeah, and be as safe as two blokes.
Mm. Hmm. We have quite a ways to go.
I know. I know.
Mm. It's such an interesting piece around the internal safety, like the internal sense of safety and connectedness, and our own trauma healing, our own resetting our nervous system to safety, our own bringing ourselves into a place of connectedness, and being a world where there are tigers that can, jump out.
Yeah.
And that's like for me in the work that I see with clients as well, it's such an interesting dance to be in this place of, okay, I want to reset my default setting to safety. I don't want to keep doing these destructive patterns because there's deep conditioning, there's deep trauma living in my body that's keeping me doing these things. I want to feel safe. I want to feel loved. I want to feel connected. And when we're in like this beautiful balcony, for example, I can fully reach that state. And then as soon as I'm outside, there's always some element of that hypervigilance, just making
Mhm.
sure. Like here in Cusco, I'm sort of down in the city, where all the cute is. It's extreme cute. And
Mhm.
up the hill, there are these amazing ruins. And I found myself there Sunday. I went with a couple of friends, we're hanging out at the ruins, gorgeous, gorgeous. They want to head home. I want to stay a little bit longer. I'm feeling safe. I'm feeling fabulous. It's a sunny day. There's lots of people out. And then it starts to get a bit cloudy, and there start to be fewer and fewer people out. And I start to realize, crap, right? I'm unsafe. So I sort of circumnavigate my way around to where there's, a guard kind of watching over the ruins. And then I had this moment of it's like a 45-minute walk from there to where I am here. And I'm like, okay, do I go this way? Do I go that way? I start walking down a road. It starts feeling kind of dodgy. There's like a street dog came out of a building and starts walking toward me. I'm like, nope, not this way. And ended up walking the other way. And luckily there was like a woman in front of me and a couple a bit in front of them. But when I went to walk down that road the first time, there was only 2 men walking down. And I was like, no, I don't want to. And just the sheer bodily discomfort of that, like, starting sense of panic of, okay, how do I, if you will, like, expand my energy and hold these 2 truths that I am safe and protected and whole and everything is good, and also I don't want to walk down this nature path with 2 men. I don't want to do that. And there's no quick cure for that. And I think the more in the way that I look at the world and it being vibrational and being able to bring yourself into coherence with different vibrations is going to naturally steer you towards more or less, joyful experiences, let's say. And then it's this dance when you're in those moments of, okay, tuning into my heart and listening to what's there. If I'm feeling fear, is it like an old survival thing and I can just breathe through it and I'm actually fine? Or is this guidance from my body that it's picking up subconscious cues that I'm actually not safe? And that's such a delicate dance. But yeah, that experience of like, I'm stuck. Like, I can't get an Uber to come up here. Like, how do I get off this mountain? And yeah, I've been having conversations as well with a gentleman that I recently met around being in nature. Nature is such a big, important thing for him. It's like, yeah, just to be in nature and, connect. And like, that's amazing. Last time I went camping for the first time with a friend, and sort of my history having been in insecure contexts. Like when I came back from Niger in 2020, I had significant PTSD and have worked through that, had not been in a situation where I was like confronted in nature, right? And so this was a few months ago. We go camping. I'm like, yes, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling embodied. I'm feeling safe. He goes off to use the bathroom. It's night. And all of a sudden my brain is like, you're about to get murdered.
Mine is the same.
You're going to get murdered now. They like saw kind of a light in the woods. We weren't far in the woods. We were kind of near a farm. And it was like, suddenly my body was straight to terror, was straight to like, and I'm doing my, I have lots of tools and I'm doing the tapping and I'm doing the breathing and I'm feeling the earth and I'm sending my energy down. And my body is just like, no, run. But there's nowhere to go. We were camping on a cliff. Like, no. And it's like part of me could hold, okay, I'm having this extreme body reaction. And then the other part of me was like, okay, logically, you're in the French countryside.
Yeah.
Okay. You're the person you're with is literally like 30 feet away. You're fine. But that feeling of terror. And so talking to this new person about like, oh, being in nature. And I was like, yeah, I love nature. I love nature where I can see enough people that I'm confident that, I'm not going to get murdered in the woods. He's like, oh, are you afraid of dying? And I was like, no, actually, no, because we were talking about the jungle and, big jungle cats and whatever there's there. And all the listeners who are here, if you're triggered, I am so sorry. I love you a lot. I'm sure you can relate to this experience, though.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not that I'm afraid of suddenly dying. It's like, I'm afraid of not dying, of being in a situation where, like, you're, where I'm trapped, right? Like, it's not, oh, I don't want to go in the woods because I'm afraid a bear is going to eat me. Like, I'm good with the bears. I'm not afraid of that. But to come across a man in the woods, no. And there's something so deeply enraging about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and I think that's also such a healing opportunity for all of us as women to do that deep work of processing through the rage of not just our experience, but of thousands and thousands of
Global.
years of
Yeah.
experience. Like I put out a bit of content recently about like the millions of women that were burned because they were accused of being witches. And I think growing up, I grew up in Boston, outside of Boston. And so there's like, oh, the Salem witch trials. And I think at the time when I learned it as a child, like we're not taught that those are humans. It's like,
No,
oh, there were
witches.
witches were burned,
Others.
right? And when we can bring that back in the fold of like, oh, these were the wise women. These were like the leaders
Healers.
of the community. These were the healers. They were the people who were connected to themselves, connected to the earth. And then millions of them were murdered. And like we still live in a world that is blatantly telling us again and again that you're not safe as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not to take it to a political place, because yikes, but the election that just happened in the US, that was a vote for, okay, if you're a woman, we just actually don't care about you at all.
Mm-hmm.
And you should probably move.
Yep. And how perfect you have to be a woman to even stand against a very mediocre. And that's saying something. That's compliment, man. You know?
Yeah, I just feel like even though there's all of this negative stuff that's happening in the world, I do feel like at the same time there is this slow mass awakening
Yep.
of people becoming more conscious to what's going on and
Mm-hmm.
becoming less willing to go with the conditioning and
Yep.
realizing that it's not just harmful to women, it's harmful to men as well. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like women have to live behind a mask and men can fully express themselves. Nobody's allowed to.
Nobody is. It's ridiculous. And it's when you pointed out that the patriarchy harms men too, it's like, in what way? How am I harmed by the patriarchy? I'm like, all of these ways. All of these ways. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. And it's not just because of the very extractive, exploitative leadership styles that we have as well. It's the
Hmm.
harm on the planet too.
Hmm. And I do believe that perhaps we're just at a place where we're kind of pushing ourselves into this dark corner
Mhm.
so that we have to crack through to the light, that we don't have an
Yes.
option
It's always
anymore.
it's always the darkest before the dawn.
Yes, indeed. I just yeah, it feels frustrating to be watching it unfold.
Mm. And we can predict
And
what's happened because we've seen history, you know, and
right.
it's like global pandemic, the rise of the far right. Oh wow, look what happened. Great fun.
Shocker.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this
And
is
then
gonna
we're
end really
repeating
well.
it. It's like, dudes, just read it, pick up a book. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd love to believe, and part of me does, that as humanity, we do have the opportunity to learn and not just repeat these cycles.
Mm.
And part of that comes from deep individual healing and deep collective healing. Because
Yeah.
all of these things, as you're mentioning, like, oh, there's a global pandemic and then rise of the far right, it's just out of fear. It's just out of safety
Mm-hmm.
seeking.
It
It's just
is.
out of wanting someone else to make us feel safe when we have the power to create that within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like Cassandra saying, look, the sky is falling down. Everyone's like, la 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 la.
No, it's not. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yes, it's
definitely.
only time will tell. But I think what's beautiful in this is souls like yourself that we come across. It's like literally just on the internet and just saying, yes, she's definitely somebody that I need in my corner. And just such an amazing collection of humans, both all genders, that we can see what's happening and we can sort of almost, I don't know whether you had the Care Bears. Did you have the Care Bears growing up?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, like
Yep,
we
Care
can Care
Bears.
Bear stare the world. I honestly believe that we can do that. Heal the
Yeah.
world with the light coming out of our tummies.
I love that. I think it's such an opportunity and a challenge for some of us. So I've been practicing Ho'oponopono, which is an ancient tradition, and it's I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And when the election happened, I turned that towards the elected president. And I was sharing that with some of the people I was traveling with, and they were like, "No!" I'm like, we can't heal this with hate and fight.
Nope.
It has to be healed with love, like
Yep.
whether or not this person can receive it. But it's also playing up the fear,
Mm.
and it's an opportunity for all of us to dig deep down within ourselves and choose where we want to live our lives. Do we
Yep.
want to live in light and love and growth and expansion and commit to our own healing and growth journeys so that we can hold that more and more in the world and in our own lives? Or do we want to engage in this unconscious, now we have to fight and battle? Because that's all that it is. It's
Yeah.
pulling us toward this energy of, resistance and separation and us versus them. And that division just allows such heinous things to occur in the world because we
Mm-hmm.
do others. That's how the witches were burned. That's how the Holocaust happened, when we were able to create so much separation between us and other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is an opportunity for us to come together and say, like, okay, even though all of these things are occurring, we're all still humans on the planet. Like, if we zoom up, we're on a rock, we're hurtling through space, we're going around a sun. We need to get our shit together.
We're all made of
Like,
stardust. Yes.
we're all made of stardust, we're all part dinosaur, like, honestly, it's an opportunity for everyone to elevate their consciousness, to be able to hold what's going on in the world and connect to what we might call the universe, divine, God, whatever word resonates,
Mm.
but to connect to the energy that is creating all of this. Because if we really think about it, it's insane. We're made of stardust on a rock, hurtling around an exploding star, and we're squabbling around like which chunks of planet go to who. What the hell?
Yep. And somebody managed to invent cake.
God, mm,
It's magical.
so much beauty in the world. And we have cake.
We have
Yeah,
cake.
there's a lot of joy to be had and light to be had, and the only thing that can illuminate the darkness is the light, not
Mm-hmm.
like more fighting darkness.
Yeah. I hate all of that. When people talk about, oh, I'm going to fight my imposter syndrome and battle my inner critic. I'm like, oh, you're going to war with yourself. That's, yeah, interesting. Let me know how you get on. It's like, no, that
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah, it's the idea of conquering. It's so deep in our psyche, and one of the biggest things, the work that I do inside and also with clients, the first thing is coming to that place of compassion. Like, all of
Mm.
these things we think of as the inner critic are survival mechanisms and patterns that have been in place to try to maximize our survival.
Yep.
And what do you think happens when we fight a survival mechanism? It's like, oh, we're under attack.
Yeah.
Let's go. It's
Yeah.
about creating so much inner safety and love and acceptance that those survival mechanisms can relax and turn off, not about fighting ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
because that just keeps us in this energy of fighting and resistance. Like, so much energy we lose in fighting ourselves. Like, for example, people will come and they're like, oh, I'm numbing out and scrolling IG, or I'm replaying conversations at 2 a.m, or I'm emotionally eating and I've gained this weight because of it. It's like, okay, now I'm going to restrict myself and I'm going to make these rules and I'm going to make myself be better. But we don't ask ourselves, what is that compensating for? Like, what is the feeling you're not wanting to feel? Or what are you afraid of that you're not willing to face? Because when
Mm.
you do the deeper somatic body focused work, like resetting your nervous system, releasing these deep patterns of trauma that are in your body, and your subconscious and your mind, those behaviors change not because you've wrestled yourself to the ground, but
With
because you're
discipline.
right with discipline. I'm going to do it with willpower. Okay, good luck. You've got more willpower than I do because it's not happening for me. But yeah, when we do that deep healing and we're no longer coming from a trauma place, we can easily, those behaviors shift themselves because they're not needed anymore. But you can't fight the behavior level. It just, because it's a fight, like it'll keep going and it's a hell of a lot stronger than you are.
Yeah. This is like evolution to keep you
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah. This is basic survival to keep you alive, and your body is going to over, will you. It is not going to let you dissolve that from a place of resistance. So coming into the self and acceptance and love, which is totally against the good girl programming. I can love and accept myself just as I am. I don't have to achieve anything or be better.
Or be thin.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, the survival voice. A few months ago, I looked in the mirror and I've named my survival voice. It helps me to disidentify from it. Tracy is her name.
Nice. Yeah.
And Tracy looked in the mirror and she said to me, "You're too fat." And I looked at the mirror and I could like see where my rib cage ended. And I was like, "Those are my bones." And Tracy was like, "Your bones are too big." And I just laughed. I was like, wow, your bones are too big. I'm 5'2". I'm not a big woman. But it was just this moment of like, even though I'm in this deep place of self-acceptance and love so much of the time, those old patterns, that old survival mechanism is ready to come up and will come up. And it's just trying to keep me safe. One of my best friends in Virginia, she's a champion and a glorious, glorious woman for all of this, especially around body image. And she said to me once, she was like, like not around dressing for a man, around, dressing whatever. She likes to have a few extra pounds. She likes how it looks on her body. And she was like, we were going out and she's like, "Well, like if I look at that voice, what's the fear? Oh, some man isn't going to like me. Some man isn't going to marry me. I don't give a fuck." I was like, right. That's what it is. We're conditioned to seek that male gaze. And we've internalized it so much that it is in that energy of fighting the body. And how unkind when this body is carrying us through this life experience and is made of stardust that we're like, you should be taller or shorter or thinner or fatter, or your hair
Bigger
should be
boobs, smaller
curlier, or
boobs.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so striking when you go through a beauty aisle. Like if you just go to any random grocery store, if you're looking for proof of the conditioning that we as women experience, go to a beauty aisle in a grocery store. It's like hundreds of thousands of products to make us less hairy, more blonde, thinner, etc. Men, they have like 2 deodorants.
Yeah, it's like, which one do you want to smell like?
Yeah, pine tree, oak forest. Okay. And I was actually in England in the Midlands, and I went to a grocery store and I was like, "Oh, I'd like to get some, relaxing candles." And I was looking at the bottom of one of the candles and it literally said like, "Careful, toxic, don't let near aquatic life." Like, so this is what we're giving to women. Oh, you want self-care? You want to take care of yourself? Burn this thing that will kill fish. Like, there's just such an incoherence of the pressure to look externally a certain way, but that physically harms our bodies. And it's the same thing that happens emotionally. We're pressured to present a certain way, and it's harming our emotional body. It's harming our mental body, which in turn harms our physical body because it's not like we have a mind and then we have emotions and then we have our physical body and they're all separate things. This is one collective thing happening here. And when we're living behind a mask and we're self-rejecting, we're self-loathing instead of self-loving. Our version of self-love is like, "Oh, I'll take a bubble bath." That's lovely, but that ain't gonna fix it.
Like, no matter how many bubble baths that you have, it's not going to fix sort of you.
Yeah, it's not going to heal the deep trauma living in your body. It's a lovely thing to do. But yeah, I think that the point that I would want to circle back to for everyone listening here is like reconnecting to your individual power and the power of the
Mm.
collective. I think for, people in general, especially women, we are conditioned to be good girls, but also to be in competition with other women.
Oh, yes.
And I think that is the deepest, sneakiest thing of the society we live in. Because when
Mm.
women get together, my God, like the healing
Yeah.
that takes place
Yep.
just in conversations. And so the ability to be with yourself, feel safe within yourself, heal whatever's causing you to live behind a mask. Because when we meet mask to mask, we always feel unfulfilled because part
Mm-hmm.
of us knows that we're not really in connection with anyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be that piece of doing the healing, growth, expansion, exploration journey that you need to as an individual to be able to take the mask off and start meeting heart to heart. And is everyone going to meet you heart to heart? Hell no. There's going to be a lot of people rolling around with masks. But if we are in mask, we can never meet the people that we are meant to meet. We can never have the connections that we desperately want to have. Because that's the loneliest feeling in the world, being surrounded by people and still feeling alone.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Rose, I could talk to you all day, as you know. What should I hate that word. Why do I always say it? What could our listeners, reviewers, watchers, what could
Mm.
they think about after listening to us two talking?
Mm. I would invite anyone listening to feel into what they want their life to feel like, how they want to feel in their day to day, what it feels like to take the mask off. What would it feel like to show up in your fullest expression? Express your needs, your desires, your wants without shame, without fear of judgment, abandonment. Really feel into what it would feel like to live mask free
Mm.
and know that it's possible. And then take an action, whatever that is. Maybe it's reaching out to Michelle, maybe it's reaching out to me, maybe it's Googling something, getting a book, but know that you are worthy of feeling the way that you want to feel in your life. You're worthy of creating what you want. And whatever that takes, whatever letting go, whatever learning, whatever unlearning needs to happen, now is the right time.
Yep. It's beautiful. That's beautiful and so wise, as per usual. So I will share all your bits and pieces in the show notes. So you can get, if you just look at the show notes, you're able to contact Rose. And like Rose, you've got a wonderful name, like me, that there's only a few of us that exist on the planet with our names. So, you're not going to find the wrong person if you Google us as well. So, yes, thank
Fantastic.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
And,
you.
thank you for agreeing to come on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You as well. Looking forward to chatting soon.